Hey, it is 5:10 Saturday night. Going from around Mountain about an hour, maybe an hour and a half ago. I got some stuff to work on to get ready for church tomorrow. So I figured you guys can follow me around as I kind of get some stuff set up. And we can talk about this Everyday Sunday. All right, so Everyday, sorry, I'm going to jump around. There's going to be jump cuts because I have to do things that I just stopped talking to do for a second, and then I pick back up where I can. Okay, so Everyday Sunday, gotta get worship loaded. So that's first up. Everyday Sunday was this idea I had. Those of you wondering where I came up with this crazy idea, I was listening to a book or a podcast or something, and it started off with someone basically asking in this book or podcast some version of like if you had to like double some version of like picking something that would be considered success and having to double it in like 1 month or I don't know, something like that. Something like that. Like how would you do it? And I came with this idea. I was like, well, if I had to grow the church to like a number I'd want, it's crooked. If I had to grow the church to like my goal number and then double that, what would I do? I'm like, well, I would probably, one of the biggest excuses of why people don't come to church, in this area at least, is that they're busy. Like they're working. A lot of people work at the mine, gas stations, things like that. And so they're busy and they can't come to church. So I'm like, well, I would remove that excuse. I would have church every single day. In fact, I'd have church twice a day. So that way, and then different times throughout the week even, so that there was no excuse of, well, I'm just busy. I'd come to church as a pastor if I could, but I can't. And then I would, in between the services, I would basically go door to door and out in the gas stations and all these other things, and I would invite people. And that's what I would do if I had to grow that fast and double my big growth number, what I want to grow in a year. I think that's what it was. Like if you had to take what your goal for the year and do it in 1 month, but then double it. So like that's what I would do. That was the original plan. And then I was going to basically do that. That didn't work. Oh, because I have to then paste. That's how copy and paste works. Oh, that's the wrong thing. It's hard to do two things at once, guys. Okay, take this. I'm just going to duplicate. There we go. Boom. Worship 2. So how, that's what I do. And that is still probably what I would do. And that's also probably that's a simplistic version of how I would plant a church as well. I actually have that all planned out as a separate thing. So, okay, worship's done. And so that's how the original idea of Everyday Sunday came about. So the plan with Everyday Sunday was to have 2 services a day, multiple times, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, no excuse. And then in between services, not only would it be putting out a ton of content that people are going to see it. I got to figure this out. I got to move. I got to make room. People will see it. But then also in between, I'm going to go and I'm going to hit, barefoot moving weights, not a good combination. I'm going to hit up the gas stations. I'm going to go to restaurants. I'm going to go like door to door to just like everywhere I can and invite people. We'll make some flyers and invite people to service. That was the original plan. That's what I was going to do. And then, it started, and those first couple of days before I had a chance to really get out, I was like, okay, let me get the first couple services down. I wanted to wait until we got into Revelation because I had a few weeks of Genesis to still finish off. I'm like, let me do this first couple days, get the hang of this, get some services out there so people can see. Why is there a pen up there? And then we'll start inviting. And that basically, a couple days in, it was way harder than I thought on like an emotional level. But I kind of felt like God was speaking to me. In fact, I talked to my dad at the end of the first week, and we were talking about comfort zones and whatnot. and God getting us out of our comfort zones. And I told him, I said, I originally came up with this as an idea and felt like I was going to do this to grow the church. I said, but it became real apparent within the first few days that what God was doing with this is God's going to use this to grow me. And then when I, as the pastor, grow, the church will grow. And he was like, yeah, that'll do it. So I very quickly dropped my plans, and I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it, to be honest, of going out every day, door to door, and inviting people. And it turned instead into, other things. God used it for some other stuff that he needed, some work on myself, as far as getting over some hurdles with some live stream stuff. If you go back and look at our very first live stream, the quality is atrocious. And then you look at, somewhere in the second week, the quality goes up like 1,000, 2,000%. And that's because I have all the skills to do that stuff. I've just been lazy. I keep having excuses. The service is more important than live stream, which I do agree with. But some of the things the Lord's been speaking to me. Anyways, long story short, got through some of those hurdles, got that stuff done. And then personal growth. You can't have church twice a day, every day, and not just have growth personally. And then you add on top of it, you're the actual pastor. You're the one who's actually doing the messages. And very quickly coming to the end of yourself and having to be like, Lord, help me. So I think for that first week, after like the first, maybe by the second day, how that was, I went the wrong way. How those services were going is I would come in anywhere from an hour to a half an hour before worship, and I'd put worship on to try to worship to get myself set so I could then go in there and basically lead a worship service and then preach. And I'm going to do with all this. And that was just, even that wasn't working after a while. So I would just come in here and lay out on the floor an hour before the worship part of the service would start. I'd put worship on. I'd lay out on the floor and just basically be like, Lord, I don't have anything. I don't have a message. I've read this scripture I'm supposed to be preaching on tonight 3 times. I don't see anything in it. I don't have anything from it. I need your help. You've got to give me something. People are going to be here in a half hour expecting a service from me. I guess it's hot. I got to turn this air down. Okay, sorry. I'm going to be off screen for some of this, guys. There's just not anything I can really do about that. There was that. And then just having worship, twice a day. Kind of coming up, guys have been speaking to me about online content. You're seeing a lot more from, on Facebook as well. But if you're not, go subscribe. 11:59 on the YouTube channel. We're doing a lot of stuff on there. God spoke to me in December, maybe November, about that and some strategies there. So definitely doing this twice a day forced me to get over and kind of overcome maybe. Preaching, I would say I got a year's worth of preaching done in 1 month, which I based that off of the fact of, there's 52 weeks. The average preacher is preaching once a week on Sunday. So that's 52 sermons a year. Technically, it's less because they'll have some guest speakers. They might be sick once or twice, out of town, vacation. And I preached 62, I don't know, something like that. It came out to be around 60. I said, a year's worth of preaching. But even that, just of the live streaming, getting over things, bringing back Rock Talk, bringing back Wordy, some things I've had in the past that who knows how long it would take me to actually hear from God, because that's an area I've been kind of dense in. He's been speaking to me on, and I've had excuses. So, all that to say, because it's hot in here. All that to say, That got me through a lot of that kind of stuff and worked through a bunch of that kind of stuff. So that was really good. Got to hear a lot from the Lord, grow from the Lord. I had pretty good attendance. I mean, definitely nowhere was it taking my yearly growth goal and doubling it. But like I said, after like 2 or 3 days, God was like, okay, that's not what this is about. Yeah, that's cute. You read that, whatever, listen to that. But this is why I put this on your heart. This is what I actually want. And he just, like I said, just began working on me. You're going to start seeing a lot more content off this channel. Later in the year, I'll be bringing back my other channel. But yeah, all that said, so that's kind of that process. That's kind of like part 1 of this video. Part 2, do any of you guys, do you guys move your weights with your feet? It kind of hurts barefoot, but I feel a lot of times when I'm at the gym, I move my dumbbells with my feet. Oh, instead of just picking them up and moving them. Okay, so part 2. All right, part 2. Yeah, I very quickly realized, especially since we were changing, I felt like it wasn't literally just going to be 2 services. I very quickly changed the morning service to be Rock Talk, which is something what I did that was supposed to be temporary, but I do think it's important and necessary. It's a daily devotional. And then I had a Wordy back. So I very quickly started getting back into some of these YouTube channel things that it's funny because it was a little bit like Joseph where, you know, God gave him the dreams. And then he thought he was going to start operating them right away. And then he ended up in prison for all that time. Same thing with Moses. Yeah, Moses. And he went out and he accidentally, well, I guess not accidentally, but he ended up killing the guy. And he's like, well, okay. And these guys kind of gave up on these dreams. I don't know about Joseph. I don't think Joseph gave up. Moses definitely did. And then years later, God was like, okay, now that you've gone through all this stuff, now that you've gone through your 40 years of testing and all that stuff, I typically have 2 people to do this, but we'll make it work. We're doing a table talk thing tomorrow, so getting this set for that. So it's kind of like it was for me. Well, God spoke to me back in New York after I knew I was coming here about bringing some of those things that he'd spoken to me, some of those dreams back. I'm like, no, Lord, like, I gave up that stuff for you to be in ministry. He's like, and I'm going to bring it back. I'm like, no, I'm going to be too busy, you know, pastoring the church, pastoring 2 churches, because we knew about that. That was part of from the beginning, though it took a little bit of a delay to get Round Mountain freed up. So yeah, it was like, I'm going to bring that stuff back. I'm like, oh, okay. And I've kind of been, like I said, well, I forgot how to be a senior pastor. And then now we have Round Mountain too. So it takes a lot of time. So God was really bringing that stuff back. And I think this really broke through a lot of those hurdles and forced me, because I realized just doing 2 traditional services wasn't going to be very feasible for a couple of reasons. One being time for the service that we only had 1 hour for. The other just being capacity. So I was like, oh, we'll do Rock Talk again. And then I was like, oh, let's bring Wordy back. So it's funny to me, especially now that I'm studying and we started in Round Mountain today, preaching on Abraham, who was someone God spoke to me a lot about in the beginning of getting ministry and stuff going. And a lot of why we even gave up some of this filmmaking stuff was to follow the call of God, and now he's bringing it back. He's using, you know, kind of Abraham again. Well, that's a mess now. Anyways, this idea of, so like it kind of like forcing you into things, right? Where you're kind of partial obedience or reluctantly following what God is saying. And then God uses that partial obedience, which, partial obedience or delayed obedience, technically disobedience. But God being faithful anyways, and taking that little bit that you give him and using that. I think Tristan has a similar testimony with wanting to, you know, when he was running for ministry and how God used the little bit he was willing to do to get him back in. Yeah, just like Abraham, you know, or Abram at the time. And God just kind of using those experiences to kind of keep building his faith, keep moving him forward. There's a little bit of that for me, I think, with this process. getting those, like I said, those YouTube shows back, those things, I would have overthought it, overcomplicated it. So God kind of got me in a situation where I kind of got to back into it a little bit. So I appreciate that. God is infinitely wise, even when we try to overcomplicate things and make things much harder than they need to be. Physically doing it, yeah, it was exhausting. It was, sometimes it was physically exhausting. I did get sick twice. I was doing a pretty good job of kind of managing my energy levels and kind of making sure, like, on days that I was like, okay, I'm really, because in the beginning it was really emotionally hard. I need proclaim. And then I kind of got over that a little bit. I kind of figured some of those things out. But then I would physically get tired and I'd have to just take a break. And then there was a particular day where I ended up running all Saturday, and then I felt tired, but I couldn't take a break. I had a thing from literally 7 a.m. until like 8 p.m. Not enough time in the middle to really take a break. And I ended up getting sick. So Sunday I felt terrible. By the end of the day, I was full and sick. I spent half the rest of Sunday in bed. Same thing on... Okay, good. Those are downloading. Same thing on Monday. I spent like half the day sick. I came over here just enough to do those services. We closed them off to the public. So yeah, I got sick definitely a couple times. Another time that started happening to me, I was able to kind of chill out a little bit, and so it didn't get as bad. But that was definitely a struggle, is just managing the physical, emotional, and mental toll. Having to come up with the content. Like, thank God I switched early to Rock Talk and I was able to just present content, daily devotions that were there, and I didn't have to come up with it all. But having to do almost every night a sermon and have doing the studying, getting things ready, the energy that it takes to do a sermon, just that got to be quite overwhelming. But hey, we did it. I think I missed 3 live streams in the whole thing. There was one that we had the service, but there were some people here, and it was a little bit of an older congregation, so it just seemed right to not go live and put my full focus on them instead of trying to split both ways. And it was the only day. I had other days like that where I didn't feel that way. But yeah, so that day we had the noon service, the 11 o'clock service, but we didn't go live, but I still did it. And then this last week I had we had to be out of town for some stuff, family stuff, and that got a little hard, and I missed a couple. I did several live streams from the hotel room. I did one 6 a.m. from my car in the parking lot in Fallon in the dark, so did pretty good. But then that next day when I was supposed to go live for the Rock Talk, I was in the gym. I totally forgot I was in the gym and I wasn't going to leave. I'd already bought a day pass and I was doing my thing, so I went ahead and left that. And then sorry, I'm typing. And then later that night it was just I was driving, so I went to go and make it up the next day, and the internet in Round Mountain just wasn't good enough to do a live. I went live, and then after a couple minutes it just cut out and it just wasn't good enough. I will make up those sessions. So I think that puts me at 3 or 2 that I missed. 1 didn't live stream, 2 that I missed. Not bad. So I think I still hit 60, because if was 31 days, that was just maybe there's 4. Maybe it was Friday too. Anyways, I did most of them pretty good. I grew a lot, learned a lot from it. I'm trying to focus. I already did this once. Here we go. I just have to do it on second service now. I have to load the worship for both services, so I was just getting confused. So yeah, all in all, interesting experience. Learned a lot about myself. Grew a lot. Grew as a speaker. Grew as a pastor. Grew as a person. Got a lot of clarity and direction. I would say probably more than normally. You do a fast in January, and I'd say I probably got more out of it this way. I won't do it again. I think there's a reason. Not having a single day off for 30 days has not been good. So I don't take days off. I don't have a set day off. I just kind of, because I like working. And so my day off is just, oh, I'm just going to work on things I want to work on today instead of things that I feel obligated to work on. But yeah, I definitely, oh, that's cool. But I definitely, that's not what I'm looking for. I definitely, man, I messed something up in here. I duplicated something that I didn't mean to duplicate. Well, looks like it's still working though. There's just an extra one. Yeah, well, it still worked. I think we're good here. Good here. So yeah, learned a lot. Would never do it again. Already have some ideas for what I'd probably do next year instead. But it was fun. It was good. You guys are going to be seeing, like I said, a lot more content. I'm going to keep up a lot of those live streams. I did enjoy some of them. Well, I enjoyed them. It just got to be much. So I am still planning on doing daily live streams. It's just, I'm not doing it twice a day. I'm not doing them on Saturday, which I preach on Saturday and Sunday. So I kind of am, but not the same. So the plan is to do Wordies, deep dives with Wordies on Mondays. Still going at 11 every day. Wordies, deep dive into scripture on Mondays. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays to be Rock Talk. Daily devotional, those will be shorter. Fridays to do, which I don't know if I'm not going to have the internet in Round Mountain, I'll have to figure this out. But Fridays to do office hours, where we basically go over last week's message, any questions I've gotten over the week, anything I need to cover more in detail that I didn't get to, and then talk about the upcoming service, talk about upcoming events, that kind of stuff. Office hours, like a professor would have office hours, so something kind of similar to that. But again, now I'm concerned that it may not work with the internet down there. So we'll see how that works. Saturday will be, I'll preach there in Round Mountain, come home, get ready for church on Sunday. Oh, I still have a mess. And then Sunday will be, I'll technically go live twice because of preaching. So looking at doing a lot more videos. I want to start doing a lot more of the gym workout videos. I want to change the format up a little bit, kind of like the original idea where I'm working out and I pick a topic, right? Whether it's a question we've had or it's just something I've been thinking about, and I'm working out and you come along with me and I'm just discussing it in between sets, just talking about like the goodness of God or righteousness, or maybe it's a question like how do you stop sinning when you really don't want to but you keep sinning? It's something like that, right? Just whatever it may be. It'll be one topic, unless it's Q&A. Maybe I do a couple of them, and I just basically bring you along with me at the gym and we answer questions, or I just go through the topics, and it's very casual like that. So start doing a lot more of that kind of stuff. So yeah. You are basically seeing the rebirth of this channel, 1159. If you're watching this somewhere else, I think I'm only going to put this probably there. But if you're watching this somewhere else, go ahead and subscribe, 1159. If you type out, so it's like my tattoo, 1159, but you actually have to type out the words and then put Jared Elrod. It should come right up. I don't know, maybe just 1159 once it's, maybe it's been in there long enough as the name change, because it used to be Youth Factor. If you just put Jared Elrod, I have so many YouTube channels from the past, like it'll be a mess. It'll be hard to find. But yeah, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, so you can keep up with all this new content we'll be doing. I still have a little bit of a mess to clean up though, so maybe I'll get my final thoughts as I clean this stuff up. Okay, so kind of final thoughts on this thing. Final thoughts. It gave me a lot of time to really think about preaching, both in the kind of esoteric, what is the purpose of preaching, how should it be done, on the more practical side of like from a public speaker side, like, oh yeah, I'm giving public presentations. Are those compatible? Are they not compatible? What am I going to do with this thing? guess we can put it back. I want that back there. You know, are they compatible? Are they not compatible? You know, I went through a course. I had several courses. That's actually one area. That'd be something to talk about too. I was going through a course and, you know, all about how to get better at public speaking and the things to work on and whatnot. And then, you know, I go and I listen to a John Piper book on preaching, and he basically says the opposite. Like, none of those human things should ever be considered. You shouldn't try to be a better public speaker. It's all about, you know, God and what he can do through you. And so it's like, you know, there's a lot of contrary advice out there being given. So, you know, working through that, it gave me, like I said, about a year's worth of experience working through those things, trying different styles. Well, something I struggle with is preaching versus teaching in a very, very basic general sense. First service is more teaching. Second service is more preaching. So Saturdays are kind of, you know, in between. And yeah, it's kind of this idea of, you know, I love teaching, but then I also really like preaching. I feel fired up after preaching. So I think I'm a better teacher than a preacher. But, you know, back and forth of, and then mixing the style. So some weeks, you know, preach 1 week, very strong teaching. Another week, you know, doing very strong preaching. Another week, well, I say week, I mean day, mixing them. How do they work together? What if I do, you know, preach, teach a little bit? What if I teach a little bit in the beginning and then I go in and I do some preaching? Oh, what if I teach it, but what if I teach with the energy and the style of a preacher? What if I preach, but then I'm pulling out a lot of the facts and stuff and really supporting as if I was teaching? Like, how do I mix these? How does it work? So I got to really play around with a lot of that. So that was cool. And kind of hone in, you know, my style, as it were. And then, you know, being someone who, you know, I'd preach at youth, preach on Sundays back in the day. Now, here, it's more Sundays. I do talk to youth a little bit different. No offense, adults, just because I feel like it's funny. Sometimes I get criticism like, oh, this isn't youth. This is adult church. You can't do it the same as you do youth. And I'm like, no, I know, because I can preach the word of God straight at youth. Adults, I can't. Again, no offense. I'm not trying to be offensive. This is a real talk here. I find preaching to youth and teaching to youth is exponentially easier because they're able to handle things better. They're able to receive the word, understand the word, comprehend the word, versus, guys, I'm just saying it, a lot of times you as adults struggle. I don't like that. Not my God. That's not the Bible I read. That's not what that means. Oh, you don't understand my situation. The youth aren't... Man, that chair, that's not where that goes. It keeps getting put back there. It's hard for me to get back there, to move it, to fix it. Oh, well, it is what it is. So, yeah, no, I agree. I joke all the time. I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. They're not the same. The youth, we just get to come in, preach the word of God, and we have an altar call. Oh, and the youth run to the altar, pour their hearts out, and receive from the Lord. Adults, we have to do all the tricks and the specialty things. It's like, you know, it's not youth. You don't have to do all these fancy things. No, it's the other way around. You have to do the fancy things with adults to get them over themselves. Again, sorry, I'm not trying to be offensive. Youth will just receive the things of God. You have a little fun, you have a little game, whatever. But then you get in and they just receive the word. You don't have to really jump through hoops like you have to on Sunday mornings. So, yeah, there's that. So getting to play around with different styles. And then there's, you know, doing videos online is very different than, and then also like days that people would be here. So it's probably 50-50, maybe 60-40 of when people were here versus not here. And so, it's very different speaking to a camera than it is speaking to an audience. I find it's easier to preach to a camera. It's easier to teach to an audience, but that's probably just me. But that's what I find. That's my experience. Now I gotta figure out what to do with all these extra weights. I'm gonna put that barbell back there. So just getting to play around with that stuff, practice that kind of stuff. Things I could have done better, or things that I had goals of I didn't do. Well, the first goal I kind of talked about was to use this to grow the church by going out there and grabbing people. I don't really consider that one a failure because I do feel like I got a different direction from the Lord. It's kind of one of those where he's like, okay, cool, you're in the car, but now I'm going to tell you that you're not going where you're planning on going. You're going to go where I want you to go. So other things though, my plan was to not only do all these services, but also I have a bunch of courses I want to get through. I have 2 public speaking courses that I need to go work through. I want to go through some pathway stuff. What else? I feel like there's, and some acting classes that I'm going through. And, these all, in one way or another, apply, kind of, to, preaching and presenting and YouTubing, as it were. And so I didn't really get very far on that. It wasn't until, I think I spent 1 or 2 days going through some of those courses. I did learn a lot. I did get through quite a few of the videos, but not nearly what I wanted. So that is one regret. If I wasn't so spent in between each service, I wish I could have spent a couple hours every day working through some of these videos and courses. Same thing. If I had a little more energy, wasn't so exhausted, it would have been nice to watch back some of my videos a little bit more, maybe even do some editing on them so I could see things, how I was saying things, watching those courses, and then being able to not just then mentally apply those things to what I'm doing, but get to see how I'm doing things and get to actually go, oh, okay, so here, look, you're doing this. Let's work on that tomorrow in that message. So that's one thing I wish I could have done better. That's one thing I think I kind of, so overall I think this thing was a huge success. That would be, you can put that in the fail/could have done better box, is going through the courses, watching my own stuff, and making adjustments accordingly. So that's one thing. I think something that went well is how much content we got out there. Our stats for both Facebook and the YouTube channel are way up. Now, in the beginning, I lost quite a few subscribers on YouTube because these are people who subscribed to me back when it was Youth Factor and it was all about youth ministry. I think I lost, some of them because they didn't like, and they were getting notifications probably twice a day as my stuff went out. So we did lose some of them, but then, we picked up a bunch of new people from just, promoting it on the church Facebook page and in person at church and stuff like that. So I think we're kind of at a net positive by a little bit, but we got rid of some inactive subscribers and replaced them with active subscribers. So I'm going to call that a win. And then let's see what else. Just the amount of content. When you're going live every day, I definitely got more views and interaction on Facebook because that's where a lot of our church people are. So we'd get, 30, 40, up to 100 views, 1 or 2, up to half a dozen or more comments on a video. Some videos, no comments, but quite a bit of views and stuff. On YouTube, the lives, get less, 1, 2, 3, 4 views. But you gotta think, doing that every single day, that was really starting to rack up the views even on YouTube. So I think I'm at something like in the last 28 days. I think I've got, I can tell you. In the last 28 days, I have 701 views. This is just on YouTube. It's probably quadruple or more of this on Facebook. So 701 views, 50.7, so almost 51 hours of content watched. So that's what I'm saying. Even if you only get 3-4 views, they're watching a few minutes at a time. I have a few people who are watching the entire video. That drove all the stats way up. So that's good for the YouTube channel. That's all right. That's decent for tomorrow. We set the camera up for the live stream. So yeah, a big boost to the YouTube channel, and also the Facebook page too. The stats are way up on that too. I wasn't tracking those because I'm trying to really grow the YouTube page, and that worked. So all in all, it was definitely good. If I had to do it again, okay. Well, what was that? Something fell over there. Oh, the sledgehammer. The handle fell. So if I had to do it all over again, I think I probably, even though I know God was kind of like changing the thing, like I would have probably still put a little more emphasis. Well, here's the thing. Here's the fundamental problem. It's hard to invite someone to a service if you don't know if anyone else is going to be there. So there'd be days where no one else was here. So if I invited someone, it would have been really awkward because I invited them to the service and there's no one else here. There's other days that there'd be a bunch of people here. For some reason, Thursday nights were very popular. Obviously, Saturday nights were popular because there were prayer meetings and everyone was really into those prayer meetings. So we definitely need to bring probably Saturday night, but definitely bringing weekly prayer meetings back, which we used to have and they were popular. I don't remember why we stopped them. So yeah. I would have loved to have had some way for it to be more evangelistic. I just don't really know how, because like I said, how do you have a service, like how do you have services and people coming to them? You can't have a visitor come in and they're the only person there. God was really gracious. There was, other than I had a sweet couple that I loved getting to spend a lot more time with, who would come during the 11 a.m. services. There were days that was just them. They were here probably for half of them, maybe more. So that was awesome. But God was really gracious that almost anytime someone would show up, he'd have 2 or 3 other people show up. So like I said, Thursday nights were really popular. Saturday nights were really popular. I don't think a single person came to a single Friday night. So I definitely know for future reference not to do a Friday night service because no one came to a single one. So that was good, information too, is just learning some of these things. What else would I do differently? Yeah, like I said, if there was some way to just like figure out how to make it more evangelistic. So technically, if I had to do it again, I would not do it that way, or I would have done it exactly how I did it, minus spend more time, on those courses. If I had to do it again, like what I would change is I would make it more evangelistic. So I'd either do like a week of revival services, or I would have like a specific like midweek service every week that we were inviting. And so throughout the week, I'd probably have a prayer service where we were praying. I'd have like coaching people on how to share their faith and invite people. And we'd have like since Thursday nights were so popular that I now know, so if I had to turn around and do this again, it'd be like, hey, we're going to have a Thursday night midweek service. We're going to have, Wednesday night during youth, we're going to have, the kids' room, turn it into a prayer room, and we're going to pray over, Thursdays services, and we're going to, and try to build that service. So I try to do something a little more evangelistic. That's one thing that God's really put on my heart, is bringing back out some of the evangelistic ideas and desires he's had in my heart in the past. I think I definitely got too much into the groove of, I'm busy because I'm a first-time pastor and I have to figure this stuff out. So I think God used this month to break me out of some of that. And what in the world? And getting back into some of the both evangelistic, discipleship, a lot of the different things that he's put in my life throughout the past. And I just was using, pastoring 2 churches and being a first-time pastor and all the travel and everything we do as an excuse. I think he used to kind of blow through some of those. So I think that is good. I think I've just about said everything I need to say about this. So I think that wraps all that up. And I think I'm just about done setting up. A couple batteries to plug in to charge. The camera needs to go over there, but I can't do that until tomorrow morning because I'm using it right now. Oh, and these microphones need to charge. I think that's it. So I think I'm done. Let me know if you have any questions about any of that process. Leave them in the comments. And I think that's it. I think I've said everything I had to say about this Everyday Sunday, doing 2 services a day for the entire month of January. I'll give myself probably an A-, considering that the biggest part was actually doing it and finishing it. Yeah, I think I'll give myself an A, but then a minus because there are several things. One of my goals was the training, and then I did miss 3 or 4 of them in those last 2 days because of the out-of-town travel I had to do. So I'll give myself an A- and call it a day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Well, whenever you're watching this, I'll see you in the next video. I'm posting or going live literally almost every day, probably every day. So I'll see you tomorrow.